Hi, fifth graders. Mrs. Loudick here again. Today's lesson, we are going to be working in Chapter 1, Lesson 5, and it is over multiplication patterns. The standard for today is under the Number and Operations in Base 10, 5.2. It says, I can explain patterns in the number of zeros of the product when multiplying by powers of 10. I can explain the placement of the decimal point when a decimal is multiplied or divided by a power of 10. I can use whole number exponents to denote powers of 10. So we are just going to be working with whole numbers. We will not get into the decimals until Chapter 3, but we are going to have our multiplication patterns. We are going to be showing them with exponents, and today we are just multiplying. So in our textbooks, we are on page 29, and our essential question for the day is asking, how can you use a base 10 fact and a pattern to multiply by a two-digit number? So for under the unlock the problem, it says, how close have you been to a bumblebee? The actual length of a queen bumblebee is about 20 millimeters. The photograph shows part of a bee under a microscope at 10 times its actual size. What would the length of the bee appear to be at a magnification of 300 times its actual size? So in order to answer this, we are going to use a base 10 fact, or a base fact, and a pattern. So we know that the original multiplication problem is 300 times 20. Remember, we wanted to magnify it 300 times, and the original length is 20 millimeters. So when we go to pick out our basic fact, we are taking the first digit from both of the factors, so the 3 and the 2. Our basic fact is 3 times 2, which we all know equals 6. So we are going to start adding the zeros in from both factors to follow a pattern. So if we add 1 0 into the behind the 3, we change our problem to 30 times 2, which we still have to solve by doing 3 times 2, which we know is 6. And then when we multiply it by 10 to the first power, that 1 for our exponent tells us that we have 1 0 in our answer. Going to the next one down, we have 300 times 2. So we're still multiplying the 3 times 2, the basic fact, which we again know equals 6. And this time, times 10 to the second power, the exponent tells me again how many zeros I need to place behind my basic fact. So my basic fact being 6, I need 2 zeros behind that because the 2 and the 10 to the second power, the 2 for the exponent tells me that I need 2 zeros. Now to finish it up, we have 300 times 20. Again, we are looking at the basic fact of 3 times 2, which does give us this 6. And we can write the 6 in our answer. Times 100 times 10. So I know that essentially there needs to be 3 zeros. So that's why we have 10 to the third power. So my answer must have 3 zeros after the basic fact. So the length of the bee would appear to be about 6,000 millimeters. So going to the bullet point down, what would the length of the bee shown in the photograph appear to be if the microscope shows it at 10 times its actual size? So remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the actual size was 20 millimeters. And if I wanted at 10 times its actual size, I would just multiply that by 10. To show that basic fact, I would have 2 times 1, and then times 10. And my two original facts have each have 1 0, so I would have times 10 to the second power. So that would give us 2 with the 2 zeros behind it. Now we all know that if you would actually take 20 times 10, that would also give us that 200 millimeters. Going down to the next example. My next example says I'm going to multiply 50 times 8,000. So we always take the first numbers from both factors to find our basic fact. So our first numbers are 5 and 8. So 5 times 8 equals 40. Now, when we multiply this basic fact, we have to remember that this basic fact ends in a 0, so you are going to have one extra 0 according to your exponent. So if I go down to the 5 times 80, so my 5 times 40 gives me, I'm sorry, my 5 times 8 gives me this 40 right here, and then my exponent of 1 adds on an additional 0 behind that 40. So 5 times 80 would be 400. If I would take 5 times 800, my 5 times 8 gives me 40. And then after that 40, I need to have 2 additional zeros because I have times 10 to the second power. So 5 times 800 equals 4,000. Now I have 50 times 800. So again, my answer to my basic fact of 5 times 8 equals 40. Because I have the 0 in the 50 and 2 zeros in the 800, that would give me a total of 3 zeros for that. So that's why I have 10 to the third power. So after that 40, I need to add an additional 3 zeros for that 10 to the third power. And to finally solve the original problem, I have 50 times 8,000. So again, my 5 times 8 equals 40. The 50 has 1 0. The 8,000 has 3 zeros. So that is how they get the times 10 to the fourth power. So I have to add 4 zeros behind the 40 to get the final answer of 400,000. On the next page, it says use mental math and a pattern to find the product. So for number 1, I have 30 times 4,000. Well, first of all, in order to help us find this product, I want to use the basic facts first and then work with the zeros. So I see that the 3 times 4 would be my basic fact. And I know that 3 times 4 equals 12. So I'm going to write 12 in my answer. And now I'm going to count the number of zeros that I need from both factors. So the 30 has 1 0, and the 4,000 has 3 zeros. So that's a total of 4 zeros that my answer will have to have. And then I'm going to place my comma because, again, that makes it easier to read. So for number 1, my answer is 120,000. You do have homework questions like 2, 3, and 4 where we are filling in the blanks. For most of them it is for the answer. For question number 4, they are asking for the base to what the exponent that it is being raised to. So number 2, my basic fact is 1 times 1, which equals 1. So I then have a 1 for all of my answers. Then the times 10 to the power tells me how many zeros I need to add behind the 1. So times 10 to the first power tells me that I need to have 1 0. Times 10 to the second power, the exponent of 2 tells me to add 2 zeros. Times 10 to the third power, the 3 exponent in the exponent position tells me to add 3 zeros. For question number 3, the basic fact is 7 times 8, which equals 56. So to fill in for the first one down, I have 7 times 8, which again equals 56. And then times 10 to the first power, the exponent of 1 tells me I need 1 0. Going to the next one down, 7 times 8, again equals 56. Times 10 to the second power, so the exponent of 2 tells me to add 2 zeros. And the last one down, 7 times 8 again is 56. And that times 10 to the third power, the exponent of 3 tells me to add 3 zeros. Now moving on to question number 4. Our basic math fact is 6 times 5, which equals 30. Notice for this one, they are wanting us to fill in the times 10 to whatever power it was being raised to. Because our basic math fact ends in a 0, I would underline the 30 from the basic math fact and then figure out how many extra zeros there are. So for the 6 times 5 times blank equals 300, I would add 10, and I see that there is one extra zero that I did not underline, so that means I am multiplying that by 10 to the first power. Moving down to the next one. Again, I'm underlining the 30, and then the number of zeros after that 30 is what my exponent would be for this one. So I have 6 times 5 times 10 to the second power because I have 2 extra zeros. And then finally, 6 times 5 again equals 30, so I'm underlining the basic fact of 30, times 10, and I see that there are 3 extra zeros, so it's to the third power. Remember, the number of extra zeros is what I would need to put for that exponent. Moving down, again, we're doing the exact same thing where we are figuring out what our base fact is, and then our basic fact, and then we are multiplying it by that exponent. So 9 times 5 for number 5 is 45, times 10 to the first power, so that exponent of 1 tells me to add 1 0. Moving down, 9 times 5 again is 45, times 10 to the second power, that exponent of 2 tells me to add 2 zeros. And 9 times 5 for the third one down, again is 45, times 10 to the third power, that exponent of 3 tells me to add 3 zeros. For problem number 6, our basic fact is 3 times 7, which equals 21. So again, 3 times 7 is 21, times 10 to the first power, exponent of 1 tells me to add a 0. 3 times 7 again is 21, moving down, times 10 to the second power, I need to add 2 zeros according to that exponent. And the last one, 3 times 7, 21, times 10 to the third power tells me to add 3 zeros. And number 7, my basic fact is 5 times 4, which equals 20. Again, they are asking for times 10 to what power. So I'm going to underline the 20 from the answer, and then I notice that there's one extra 0, so I know that's times 10 to the first. Moving down to the next one, I'm underlining the 20, and I see there are 2 extra zeros, so that would be times 10 to the second. And the last one for number 7, again, underline the 20. I have 3 extra zeros that are not underlined, so times 10 to the third power. For questions 8 through 16, we just have to multiply the basic fact together, and then we are adding the number of zeros that the times 10 to whatever exponent it is tells us to do. So for number 8, 6 times 6 equals 36, times 10 to the first power, that one exponent tells me to add 1 0. Question number 9, 7 times 4 is 28, times 10 to the third, I need to add 3 zeros. For question number 10, 9 times 8 is 72, times 10 to the second power tells me to add 2 zeros. Question number 11, 4 times 3 is 12, times 10 to the second, I have to add 2 zeros. Question number 12, 2 times 5 is 10, times 10 to the third, that 3 in the exponent tells me to add 3 zeros. Question number 13, 2 times 8 is 16, times 10 to the second tells me to add 2 zeros. For question number 14, 6 times 5 is 30, times 10 to the third power, I would have to add 3 extra zeros. For question number 15, 8 times 8 is 64, and times 10 to the fourth tells me to add 4 zeros. And question number 16, 7 times 8 is 56. Times 10 to the 4th tells me to add 4 zeros again. You can put your commas in, however, when you type in your answers into Schoology, I would prefer that you do not have those commas, because if you place them in the wrong spot, Schoology will count them wrong. So, moving on to the homework. Our homework is on page 33 and 34. On page 33, the questions that you will have to submit into Schoology start with number 3, number 5, number 7, number 9, number 11, and number 13. So make sure you are filling in for questions 3 and 5, all of the missing blanks. For questions 7, 9, and 11, you just have to give me the answer to that basic fact and then add the number of zeros behind it. And for question number 13, it says the Florida Everglades welcomes about 2 times 10 to the 3rd power visitors per day. Based on this, about how many visitors come to the Everglades per week? Well, we do know that there are 7 days in a week, so we are going to take the basic fact of 7 times 2 and then multiply that by 10 to the 3rd power. So that is the answer that you will give me for number 13. On the back of this page, for all of page 34, you will be expected to do every single question. And for number 1, it's asking how many zeros are in the product 6 times 5 times 10 to the 3rd power. Please make sure you actually multiply this out, because you may notice that there are a different number of zeros than what the exponent tells you. So you are going to, in Schoology, enter the number of zeros. For number 2, Addison studies a tarantula that is 30 millimeters long. Suppose she uses a microscope to magnify the spider by 4 times 10 to the 2nd power. How long will this spider appear to be? So for this one, ladies and gentlemen, I know to get my basic fact, I'm taking the 3 times 4. And then I'm going to multiply it by 10 to the 3rd power, because when I have the original length of 30 millimeters, there was a 0 in the 30, and then when I'm magnifying it, I have it times 10 to the 2nd power. So there's going to be a total of 3 zeros that I need to make sure that I'm working with. So to solve number 2, I'm taking 3 times 4 times 10 to the 3rd power. And that'll give you the number of millimeters that tarantula would appear to be. For question number 3, it says Hayden has 6 rolls of dimes. There are 50 dimes in each roll. How many dimes does he have all together? So for this, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to just take 50 times 6, and that will tell us the number of dimes. For question number 4, an adult ticket to the zoo costs $20 and a child's ticket costs $10. How much will it cost for Mr. and Mrs. Brown and their 4 children to get into the zoo? So because we know that both mom and dad are going to the zoo, we would have 2 adults. So I'm going to have 2 times 20 just to figure out for the 2 adults. Plus, now it says their 4 children are going, and remember each child costs $10. So we are going to take 4 times 10. Remember, solve both sets of parentheses and then add those 2 answers together. and that will give us the total amount that it will cost the Browns to go to the zoo. For question number 5, at a museum, 100 posters are displayed in each of 4 rooms. Altogether, how many posters are displayed? So you have 100 posters per room, and there are 4 rooms. So we just need to take 100 times 4, and that will tell us how many posters there are. And finally, for question number 6, a store sells a gallon of milk for $3. A baker buys 30 gallons of milk for his bakery. How much will he have to pay? So if he's buying 30 gallons and each gallon costs $3, he would need to take 30 times 3 to get the total amount of money he's paying for this milk. Don't forget, if you have any questions and you are on Mr. Reindel's side, please direct your questions to him. If you have any questions and you are on my side of the hallway, please make sure you are asking me. Thanks, and I hope you had a great day.